Hey, geometry class! Welcome back to our asynchronous day. So today we're going to start off with a little bit of review. And if you don't have these definitions down, you'll want to make sure that you have your notebook with you, have a pencil, and be ready to pause the video when needed to get some information down. You will also be doing some sketches, so even if you have these first few things down, pause the video now, run and grab your notebook, and come on back. The first thing we're going to talk about is an angle. We talked briefly about this when we did our first learning target, and yep, we're on to our second learning target right now. So an angle is formed by two non-collinear rays, and they share a common endpoint. So when we're talking about those two rays, those are our two sides that we have right here, and then that common endpoint, that is our vertex. We've also talked already about how we name angles, and we're just going to do a review to make sure that we remember how to name them. So for this particular angle right here, and you actually did this for your due now the day before today, so should already have this done. We could call this angle 1. We could call this angle A, and the only reason we can call this angle A is because that vertex is not shared by any other angle. We could call this angle CAB, and we could also call this angle BAC. Notice that that vertex A has to be that center letter that we're using when we name this. Now, I want you to draw this sketch or this figure, and I would like for you to name each angle in two different ways. Pause the video if needed so that you can draw the sketch. And I'm going to go ahead and start in with this. So we're going to start with this angle right here. We could call this angle 1. Angle A. I'm going to do more than 2 because I want you to make sure you're checking your work. We could call this angle B, AD, or go all the way BAC all the way to there. We could also call this angle DAB. I'm going to switch my colors, and now we're going to do this angle. So this could be angle 1, angle B, because that vertex is not shared by another angle, angle ABD. Notice I'm using the angle symbol each time. That is proper notation. Angle DBA. Now, let's go to this angle right here, angle 3. So we could call this, let's write it down here, angle 3. We could call this angle BDA. We could call it angle ADB. Let's go to angle 4. We could call this angle 4, angle BDC, angle CDB. Now notice for this one here, we don't have an angle D because we don't know if you said angle D, we don't know if you're talking about angle 4 or angle 3. Now we're also going to do a quick review of how we use a protractor. So I just want to make sure that you understand how to measure angles. And one of the most common, let's move that video over here. One of the most common things that I see is that students don't line that protractor up just right. So there's usually a hole right here, or there will be a line across the bottom, and you would line that up with your straight line. Okay, so let's look at measure of angle AQB. So AQB, I am going to try to highlight mine by color. So angle AQ, let's try that again. So angle AQB, this one right here, would be 90 degrees. Angle AQC, so AQC, that one would be, it's greater than 90. So notice our choices are 60 or 120. It's greater than 90. We're counting from 0, so we're using these lower numbers here. So AQC would be 120 degrees, and make sure you put the degrees on the end of that. That's like your units, right? Next one, ZQY. So ZQY, this angle right here. So now we're counting up this way. It's this angle. It's not this really big obtuse angle. It's this acute angle. So that's less than 90 degrees. So now this time we're using the top numbers, and it's about 45 degrees. Angle CQB. There's CQB right here. So we know this is from 60 to 90. That means the difference is 30 degrees there. And then angle XQY. Angle XQY. So if I look at where this angle right here going from here to here, that's 45 degrees. And if I go all the way around, that's 135. I went all the way over to here. So if I subtract those, I get 90 degrees. I didn't mean to have that slide there. Sorry. Congruent angles are two angles that have the same measure. So with these two angles, I want you to draw two angles that look similar. We're going to name the first angle ABC. We're going to name the second one XYZ. The way that we would mark that these are congruent is we could do one arc like this. If we had more than one pair of congruent angles, we would do double arcs or triple or quadruple. Okay. Another thing that you can do, let's go back. Another thing that you can do is an arc with a little tick mark on it. Okay, so you might have something like that as well. All right, and our notation for this would be angle ABC is congruent to angle XYZ. We could also name this angle B is congruent to angle Y, or we could name them the other way also. So I think you already looked at, excuse me, pair of complementary angles. And so I just want to look at this briefly just as a review. So if we're talking about pairs of complementary angles, like the measure of angle 1 plus angle 2 equals 90, okay? These are all, this whole section over here, these are all pairs of complementary angles. So you can see that these are not touching, but they're still a pair of complementary angles. 3 and 4 are touching, they're sharing a ray, but they're still a pair of complementary angles. They add to be 90. Over here, we've got these two angles that add to give us 92, so they're not a pair of complementary angles. These two angles give us 180, so that's not a pair. And then these two angles here, we don't have any measure. We don't know. These are not pairs of complementary angles. When we talk about pairs of supplementary angles, they have to be 180. And so we have this first linear pair, angle 1 and angle 2. So that it makes a straight line. So that is a pair of supplementary angles. And then angles 3 and 4, this is telling us that they equal 180 degrees. Just like up here, it's telling us that they equal 90. So if the information is given to us that it equals 180, then they are a pair of supplementary angles. So these are all pairs over here. Over here, it's telling you that angle 4 and 5 are greater than 180. So that's not a pair of supplementary angles. 1, 2, and 3 do make a straight line, but it is not a pair. So those are not pairs of supplementary angles. I want you to open your book. If you don't have your book with you, pause this and go grab your book. I want you to open your book to page 122. On that page, you're going to see an investigation. It's called the linear pair conjecture. Here's what you're going to do. And you can just do this in your notebook. On a sheet of paper, you're going to draw line PQ. You're going to place a point R between P and Q. It gives you the image right here, what you're going to do. Choose another point S, not on that, draw the line, okay? When you get that drawn, you're going to use your protractor along line PQ and you're going to measure the linear pair of angles and then tell what do you notice. So there's a space right here. What do you notice? We don't have a group because we're doing this asynchronously today. So that's something that we could share out in class. So do that, pause the video, do that, and then come back to complete the linear pair conjecture. So you should have this done on your paper, a linear pair, something similar to this or similar to what we had up there. And what you noticed when you measured those angles is that they give you 180 degrees. That's what's under here. If two angles form a linear pair, then we would say their sum is 180 degrees. We use linear pair conjecture a lot when we're doing proofs, and in a couple of days, we're going to practice doing some proofs. Make sure you get that down before you go on to the next slide. Again, if you need to pause, please take the time to do that. So now we've got similar picture linear pairs of angles. So angles 1 and 2 are linear pairs. They make a straight line. 3 and 4 make a straight line. They're linear pairs. AED, so angle AED and angle AEC is a linear pair. Oops. And then angle BED and angle DE, that was going this way, DEA, that is also a linear pair. We could keep going around and having other linear pairs. Let's look at the ones that are not. 5 and 6 are not linear pairs. They don't make a straight line. 1 and 2 does not. 3 and 4 does not because it's got this extra angle here. And then B and A, angles B and A are not because they are not connected. So they do not make a linear pair because they are not sharing a common side. For our linear pair conjecture, if two angles form a linear pair, then their sum is 180 degrees. Make sure that you have that in your notebook also. Pause if you need to get this written down. All right, one more investigation. You're going to need a piece of patty paper for this one. This is called the vertical angles conjecture. And what you're going to do is draw two intersecting lines on the patty paper. You're going to label the angles. I am going to make my screen a little bit bigger so I can show you. So this is what you're going to do. Draw two intersecting lines just like the picture shows you there. Then it's going to tell you to fold your paper. So you're going to fold this so that you are lining up your angles. So let's go back to the direction here. You're going to fold this so that the vertical angles lie over top of each other. So like I'm going to fold it on the point so that angles 3 and 4 line up on top of each other, okay? And then I'm going to open it up. What did I notice? And then fold it the other way. So I'm not folding it on a line. I'm folding it so that the angles line up on top of each other, okay? So again, you won't compare your results with your group because we are doing this asynchronously right now. Pause the video if you need to get your patty paper and do your sketch, and then come back for the vertical angles conjecture. The vertical angles conjecture says if two angles are vertical angles, then the angles are congruent. Oh my goodness, I'm having a hard time writing. Really just spelling. I sometimes like to just use the symbol congruent to help me out there a little bit. Okay. And the last thing we're going to look at today is pairs of vertical angles. Angles 1 and 2 are vertical angles. They're opposite and they're the same measure. 3 and 4 are vertical angles, opposite and the same measure. And again, we use this a lot with proofs. Angle AED and angle BEC are vertical angles. Angle AEC and angle DEB are vertical angles. And I'm going to mark those this way because they're congruent to each other also. Over here, these are not pairs of vertical angles. 1 and 2, that would be a linear pair, not vertical angles. Okay, that looks like an angle. Let's rewrite that. So this one would be called a linear pair. Angles 4 and 3, that's just not vertical angles. 5 and 6, it's not two straight lines intersecting. 7 and 8, also not two straight lines intersecting. And 9 and 10, those do not share a vertex, and so they're not two lines intersecting. Okay. If you have questions, write down any questions that you have, bring them to our next live class so that we can go over that. I know that was a lot of information. You are going to, I don't have an assignment for you to do after this. I just wanted you to get all that information down. And I think this will post for you on Friday. And then Monday, we will do some practice with this in class together. Okay. If you have questions, come to that asynchronous time also to check in. Okay. Bye.